Hi, so I haven't filmed a video in a while, like a video like this, because I filmed a travel vlog when I was in Belgium with Kat. And if you want to watch that 3-part series from Christmas, all 3 parts are uploaded now, so you can go watch that. I'll like link it up here. But I haven't filmed like a university themed video in ages, and I want to try and film a few more of them this year because I suddenly realised that like I'll be finishing university relatively soon, maybe. Like it depends what I end up doing after 3rd year because I've got some plans in my head. This video is just going to be like frequently asked questions that sometimes people ask me in my comments and that I see just like in the general atmosphere of university, if that makes sense, and then like some top tips that I've learned as a student myself. For a bit of context, I'm a 2nd year psychology student who has an interest in clinical psychology majority. I don't think that's a word. For the majority. In 1st year I lived in Halifax College in Ainsty Court, Block A. If we want to get really specific, flat 4, because I don't live there anymore, so it's not like it's putting my life at risk by saying that. And I don't have any plans on dropping out at the moment, so yeah, this is coming from someone who's like enjoying university and is handling university okay. Let's get into the questions. Also, I got my nails done yesterday as like a pre-exam treat. Just wanted to show that off, seeing as that cost me quite a bit of money. Let's get cracking. Okay, so I cover a lot in this video, meaning the video is probably going to be quite long. So to make it more helpful, if there's a certain point that you want to like look into, like a certain area of university that you have a question about that I might cover in this, I'm going to divide it into like sections. I'll leave the timestamps in the sections in the description box, but also I'm going to put them here. So if you want to just like fast forward to your section or subsection, then feel free. So I'm going to start with housing and accommodation from year 1 because that's what the majority of the questions in my comments are about most of the time. I just kind of wanted to summarize it all in one video because I feel like these might be kind of common questions and also things that I had questions about myself, if that makes sense. I lived in Halifax, Ainsty Court. That was ensuite housing. I would not be able to afford that with how much the prices have increased now because of like the cost of living crisis and stuff. Would I recommend it? Yes and no. I liked having an ensuite. It was handy. I had like a little routine going, but also I don't think it would have been awful to share if I didn't have that. Going off my other friends' experiences who did not have ensuite living, it didn't sound like an awful experience. It does obviously depend on who you live with. Like all of these aspects do depend on who you live with. It is just a bit of luck of the draw. I've been quite lucky that I lived with reasonably easy to live with people, and the same again for most of my friends and stuff like that. Also, I just want to point out now, I lived with only 4 other people for the majority of my, no. Yeah. Wow, that's really concerning. I lived with 4 other people for the majority of my 1st year, so there was only 5 of us in the flat. So if you compare that to some of the other housing situations that can have 8, 12, sometimes even 20 people, obviously it's a different experience. They too try and like make the living experience a little bit better for those people who have more like people that they're living with. So like I'm talking about like multiple kitchens, there's several bathrooms in a house, stuff like that. But yeah, this is just off my experience, so it's probably going to be different, but I'll try and factor in things that I know from my friends who lived with more people. Okay, rambling over. The first question that someone asked me was, is the kitchen empty a lot? They said that they like to kind of cook on their own and like cooking in a quiet space and stuff like that. So in our house, the kitchen was empty throughout the day, like usually throughout the day it was quite empty. There would sometimes be about 2 people in there at one time, like any time between like the morning to the mid-afternoon. It depended on what was going on that day, if it was the weekend, but also our kitchen wasn't the nicest kitchen. It was clean, but it just wasn't a very enjoyable space to be in. So we'd usually just like eat in our own bedrooms, or at least I did. I like to eat in my room. But yeah, it got busier on the evening because people kind of wanted dinner at the same time, or they were getting ready to go out somewhere, or just things like that. It just tended to get a little bit more busy then. But yeah, for the majority throughout the day you could find it quite quiet, but again, that is just living with 4 other people. We had like an unspoken rule in our house that if you have your headphones in, usually that means that you're not really interested in like participating in a conversation, if you're like obviously watching something, because sometimes people just want to like be in their quiet headspace and do their thing. I'm definitely one of those people sometimes that I just want to cook and eat, like that's the only reason why I'm there. And other times I do want that social interaction, I do want to like talk to people and catch up with them. So there is kind of that aspect there of like, if you have your headphones in, you might not want to talk or be part of the conversation. You can also just like not reply much and then I think people catch on. But yeah, either way, I don't think it's a huge issue though. Like I said, if you want to like quickly cook and then eat in your room, then you can. In terms of dirty pots and stuff like that, some houses are really good, some houses are really bad. That's just like a general census. Ours was pretty good. Again, there was less of us and a lot of us are neat freaks. But I know in some of my other friends' houses who live with like 12 to 16 people, they could get pretty messy. They could be a little bit gross sometimes. You do have weekly cleaners that come in, and then you get like sanctions if your kitchen isn't cleaned. And if you get 2 sanctions in a term, I think it is, then you get fined and everyone has to pay the fine. So it is kind of I think it's a good way that it kind of encourages everyone to keep the kitchen clean. You also have to clean your own bins, like empty your own bins and stuff like that. That's all up to you. And no one cleans your bedroom. Yeah, that's all up to you as well. There is a Hoover that's provided in the accommodation, but yeah, no one cleans your room. Whilst we're on the topic of cleaning, I wanted to quickly talk about laundry. In first year, the majority of universities in general, I think, but York University especially, use circuit laundry. So in Halifax, what you do is you take your laundry bag, go find the laundry building. Like in Halifax, it's a separate building. I don't know if this is the same in all colleges because some of them are like one big block and other ones are like, Halifax is like houses. You go to the laundry building, you can either have a laundry card, which you can buy, I actually don't know how you get that, or you can use the circuit app, which is what I did. It's kind of cheeky because the laundry costs are rigged so that there'll always be some money left on your card. So let's say you put £5 on your card, because I think the minimum you can add is £5. If you did a washing machine cycle and a tumble dryer cycle, I think it was something like £4.70, so there would always be 30p left, but then you couldn't add the exact £1 something to make that up into another laundry wash, if that makes sense. So I'm pretty sure that I had some money left on my circuit card. There's probably a way to get that back, but it was just like, well, I would have spent that on drinks anyway for me. Like, it wasn't a lot of money, but obviously if you've got like £20 left on your card, try and get that back. But yeah, you just kind of take your laundry down, you put it in the washing machine, and then you put a laundry tablet in there, or like your laundry liquid. I use liquid because I use a lot of bamboo products and you can't use fabric conditioner on them. So you pop that in, close the door, and then the door locks itself, does the cycle. On the app, it roughly gives you an estimate of like if your cycle's ongoing or finished. I usually looked at the timer that it says on the washing machine and then set a timer on my phone, go back to my accommodation, and then I'd walk back to the laundry room when it's done. Very, very rarely will people take your laundry out of the machine when the machine's complete. I don't think I ever experienced that, and I never did it to anyone else. It's usually just like, well, they're gonna come for it eventually, or they might have just forgotten. But like, I know in some universities people might like take the stuff out because they want that machine, but I never experienced that, and I don't think anyone else I knew did. So yeah, usually that's not a problem. I've also never experienced anyone stealing my laundry, but I'm sure that must happen in some circumstances, whether on purpose or by accident. But again, no one that I know had that happen to them, so usually it's a pretty safe, reliable procedure. I just thought I'd put that out there because I remember that really stressed me out, like having to navigate all of that and figure that out, because I was just really nervous first year. I feel like everyone is, it's a new setting and stuff. I remember me and my housemates kind of went together to figure it out. Also, if you're using the tumble dryers, make sure you clean the lint trays, which like you pull out the lint tray and clean off the fluff on it, or else that can start fires. So please do that and be considerate. I'm pretty sure the cleaners double check it, but either way.
Also, I didn't mention this, but there are like instructions provided in the actual laundry room, so I don't feel like you have to remember this. There's like step-by-step instructions on the washing machines, the tumble dryers, your phone. Like it's really not a stressful or difficult procedure to figure out. And honestly, once I did it once, like I was fine for the rest of it. I mean, like once I'd figured out how to do it once. I don't mean I only did one load of laundry for like my whole uni course. But yeah, just thought I'd pop that in there too.
Going back to the kitchen, I had a question about cupboard space in the kitchen. Again, I shared with 5 people, so I think I had 2 or 3 cupboards to myself, or like half cupboards. We didn't find it too bad. I kept the majority of my like pots and pans and stuff in my bedroom because it saved me cupboard space where I could keep food and plates. Some of my friends only had like half a cupboard to themselves if they were sharing with more people. It just kind of depends. Some people are quite considerate in that they want to divvy it up evenly, and some are like first come first serve, which is a little bit rude if you ask me. Currently in our second year house, we kind of have more communal storage spaces, but we know each other better now, and our kitchen is like more of a home kitchen, so it makes sense to do it that way. Cupboard space is generally okay. Fridge space is also generally okay. There was some issues with like I remember one of my course-mates, she lived with like 12 other people, and one of their fridges broke and they didn't replace it for like a week. Like the university didn't replace it for a week, so 12 of them were like sharing one fridge and freezer, which I think was a bit of a freaking nightmare. But yeah, that can happen. Usually if you're sharing with about 12 people, I think there's usually about like 3 or 4 fridges typically, but it does depend. Like it differs from house to house and college to college. I was asked a question about halls in terms of partying and drinking. I don't know whether it meant like they wanted a party lifestyle or they didn't. This is what I experienced. You can hear everything in halls. You can hear absolutely everything. I could hear when our flat door opened, I could hear when the other flat door opened, I could hear when the front door of the building opened, I could hear people above me and below me and in the walls next door. I could hear the girl next to me having sex all the time. So it's pretty, it feels, I remember my friend described it as like, it feels like you're living in a prison a little bit. Not in terms of the housing was so awful, it was like a prison, but I mean, it's not like, you're just always aware that there's other people around you who you do not know. I'm not saying it's unsafe, but I just want to like throw it out there. It's not always the most peaceful experience, especially if it was on a weekend. It could be a little bit annoying, could be a bit louder, but then at the same time, it's the weekend. But in terms of prees partying and drinking, we usually hosted prees either in the kitchen, or if it was just us girls going out, sometimes we just host it in one of our bedrooms. We would host prees sometimes with our friends in the kitchen, and just to be considerate, we'd drop it in the group chat like, oh, by the way, our friends are coming over to host prees, because the guys in our flat didn't really go out with us as much. It was just more us girls that would. The same again in like if we went to another friend's flat to pre, sometimes other housemates who weren't going out clubbing would come downstairs to like cook and stuff. There was often a door, at least in Halifax, that would divide the kitchen from like the dining space, so they could kind of have privacy. But again, they usually put on headphones, kept to themselves, we kept to ourselves. I never experienced anything with like peer pressure or anything like that of like, oh my god, why aren't you drinking, why aren't you like getting drunk right now and stuff. I just fell in with a nice group who never made me feel that way. I'm doing dry Jan this month, and like I know that if they were going clubbing and I went and didn't drink, they wouldn't be like, why are you drinking? But I am surrounded by like nice people. I feel like I know how to make nice friends. But yeah, in the houses and stuff, I never experienced that, and no one ever like judges anyone. One of my housemates doesn't really drink, and no one's ever like judged him for that, or like said like, why are you drinking, why are you drunk right now? Like no one really cares. Everyone's different. Again, it can differ from flat to flat. Sometimes you get stuck with scumbags, and they can just be scumbags, and they might be a bit judgy. They might be stuck in the secondary school mindset of being popular and cool, stuff like that. Clearly I'm not one of those people. I'm sat in Snoopy dungarees, but you know what I mean. I'm not saying that I'm not like other girls, but I'm just saying some people can be dickheads. Be ready. Sometimes people would have flat parties, and if it was like an open invite, they'd put posters up and just be like, party at this place at this time, and you could just go. Usually we like got drunk with our house first, and then we'd go and like socialize. I think I only went to one flat party. and it was a good time. Like, I wish I could have gone to more, but not many people hosted them. If you don't want to pre, if you don't want to drink, if you are not interested in that kind of lifestyle at all, that's fine. One of my course mates doesn't really love clubbing, she doesn't go clubbing a lot, and that's fine. Like, I admire her so much because I get FOMO, and so sometimes I go out even if I don't really want to. She does not get that at all. She's just like, that's not for me. So if that's not your lifestyle, you will find people who also don't want to do that. Like, you really, really will. Or even if you have people who do like to do that, you will still find friends. Like, don't worry about it, is what I'm trying to say. Like, you will find people who like the same interests as you, maybe don't like to go clubbing a lot, or don't like clubbing at all, who don't drink, who do drink. Like, whatever you want, you can find your circle. Location, finally, I just wanted to, this is specifically about Halifax. Halifax is, I chose it because it was detached from everywhere else, but also it was really detached from everywhere else. It was handy because a lot of our course mates also lived in Halifax, so we'd all walk back together or walk to lectures together, which was kind of a nice start and end to the day. But also it was a bit of a trek from everything. It was a trek to the bus stop, and when it's colder, which in the UK in the north it usually is, that was quite a miserable process of walking to the bus stop to go into town to club. Thankfully I don't really have that problem anymore because I live close enough that I can either walk or I'm really close to a bus stop now to get into town. But yeah, I remember first year that was a bloody ball ache. There is a shortcut in Halifax called Rape Alley. Not everyone calls it that, but that's how we knew it. No one gets raped there. It's just a name for it. Like, I don't know what, it's probably because it looks like you could, but you would never. Like, you would never, don't worry. But yeah, I remember I was a stim this year, which is like we go out with the freshers to like make them feel more comfortable, to tell them where to go, to tell them what to do. Our freshers didn't really want us there, which is fair. Like, it is a bit of an awkward thing, but me and my friends did it anyway. And we were told not to take people down the alleyway just because sometimes you get noise complaints because it kind of goes in between houses. In Hull we call it a snicket, but I don't think that's like a universal term, or it might be, I'm not sure. But yeah, it goes in between houses, and sometimes the houses will complain because people are being loud. But also you live near a student area, like, what do you expect? But anyway, separate issue. But yeah, that's like a decent shortcut. It just kind of cuts like walking around all the houses. It takes like 10 to 15 minutes to walk to the bus stop, which is a bit of a ball ache, and it takes a long time to walk into town from there. There is another shortcut on campus that takes you nearer into town, which is near Vanbrugh College, which you'll probably figure out yourself if you come to the University of York. If you live in Darwin, especially if you take psychology or honestly any subject, you have kind of got it best, because Darwin's accommodation is ugly as hell and it's not the nicest, but you are really, really close to the bus stop. You're really close to one of the lectures in Darwin. Like, there's a lecture hall there, and I remember my friend Kat would just like roll out of bed and like walk to lecture, and we'd been awake like half an hour before her, and she'd like meet us at the bus stop and it would take her 2 minutes. Like, you have it pretty good there. In terms of being near food shops and grocery shops, there is a Nisa on campus, which is super overpriced, but sometimes you need to go for like milk and stuff like that. I went a couple of times when I was not feeling well or couldn't be bothered to go to like a cheaper place. There is a Lidl, Morrison's and Iceland, Home Bargains, B&M, all of them lot in like her shopping area that you can get to if you take the 67 bus. It's kind of just before the walls into town, so you can go there if you get the 67 and walk it, or you can get the number 8 and it drops you right outside of Lidl and Morrison's. Or there is an Aldi that is in, oh, what's it called, Fentworth, something like that. You can't really get a bus to, but you can walk it, and I walked it and it would take like 20 to 30 minutes. Sometimes I would bike it and it would take 10 to 15 minutes. It is a bit of a ball ache, but it's cheaper if you go to Aldi and Lidl. Some of my friends got online delivery because they found that easier and they could do that on a more affordable budget. And so you can get online delivery. Unfortunately, like I said, a lot of the corner shops that are around the campus are co-ops or Nisas because they like to make us broke. You can go into town if you want and find like little Sainsbury's and Tesco corner shops. I sometimes do that on my walk home from work. But yeah, that's kind of it for food shopping. I'm going to quickly get into housing and accommodation for year 2, and then I'll get to more like exciting stuff. So housing and accommodation for year 2, it is pretty expensive to live in York, especially in the cost of living crisis. Rent has gone up, bills have gone up, it's pretty spenny. I'm in a lucky place where I have enough finances that with my student loan and my finances and my parents, I can afford it. You can find like cheaper accommodation. It probably won't be as nice, but it is one of those things. York is really expensive, unfortunately. So just keep that in mind when you want to come here. It is quite an expensive city. Our accommodation is bills included. I know some people who don't have bills included. That just seemed too stressful for us to figure all that out ourselves. I would recommend bills included just because it saves a lot of stress in that front, and you kind of have like a limit so you know what your like maximum minimums are. One thing that you need to keep in mind when you do your housing and accommodation for year 2 is checking if you're exempt from taxes. By that I mean you will be exempt from taxes because you're a student, so you don't have to pay housing taxes at all. Sometimes your landlord might do that for you. It might be in your contract, so double check if they do that for you. In our case, our landlord didn't, and so I applied for a tax exemption. Don't panic if you get a letter saying what your taxes are due, because we got a letter saying that we owed taxes. We freaked out. I called up this really lovely helpline. The woman was so nice, and I was like, oh, I'm just a bit confused because I put in that we're exempt, we're students. And she was like, yeah, it just sometimes takes them a while to go through all of the exemption requests. They're not the slowest, they're not the fastest moving council. So about, I think like a month later, we got another one coming through saying that we didn't owe any taxes. So just give it a little bit of time, but obviously if you want to call up for your own peace of mind that it is going to be sorted out, then do. But yeah, don't forget to check that your tax exemption form has been filled in, like housing tax I mean. I'm just going to quickly touch on psychology because I had this really lovely girl reach out to me on Instagram and ask me some questions about the course and psychology at university, so I thought I would fill y'all in. I'm quite a hard studier. I place a lot of my worth in my academic validation. It's a really healthy trait. I worked myself raw in A-levels to the point where I was hospitalised from burnout. Don't do that. I'm probably going to end up doing that at the end of university again, but oh well. But yeah. So this is coming from someone who isn't at university to piss about and get drunk, because some people do want that and they just like come out with a bare minimum degree, and that's fine. Everyone's different. Some people just want like the social aspect of it, and hey look, I got a decent degree at the end of it too, which they just passed. Some people like me want both the social life and a really good degree, and sometimes I will prioritise my degree over my social life, but it's usually not too bad. I feel like I'm pretty good at balancing these things. Anyway, this is coming from someone who cares about their degree, is the bottom line. I am aware that they are changing the way the semester system works to align with other universities. I think next year or the year after, which will be 2023 into 2024. But I'm pretty sure that you still do 5 modules in the year. I just think they're divided up differently. Currently, I have 1 lecture a week for each module. But that's for me. Like I said, this might change, keep that in mind. But I think overall in the year you do 5 modules. Research methods, which is all to do with different types of research tactics, and majority of it is statistics, the dreaded S word, which I will come on to. SBA, social, personality and abnormal psychology. Perception and cognition, P&C, I hate perception and cognition. Brain and behaviour, my favourite, B&B, and language and development, L&D, which I have a love-hate relationship with. You do 5 modules. In terms of psychology, again, this is right now, I'm not sure if this is changing. We have both coursework in terms of essays and practical reports, and multiple choice online exams. They might not stay online, they might not stay open book. Keep that in mind. I'm really lucky that they've kept that for both of us, because oh my god, if these were not open book, I would be crying myself to sleep right now. The practical reports I'm semi-decent at. You do get a reasonable amount of time to write them, but as is all university students, you leave it to the last minute. Everyone fucking does. Very rarely have I been massively organised with my essays. I usually don't have to write them like the day before, but I usually am stressing out. I remember one time I was hungover on the train back, editing my practical report, and submitted it on the train. It was coming back from Nottingham and I was hungover, I was hanging out my arse, and I got a first in that practical report. I've never gotten a first before and I never have since. So maybe the trick is to be hungover, I'm not really sure. I'm better at practical reports than essays for some reason. I finally swallowed my pride and I'm going to the writing centre on Monday. So the university is quite good. I promise I'm not like endorsed by them, by the way, but they provide math skills and writing centres, so you can get in touch with the library and like the different services and book an appointment, and they can give you some guidance. So those services are free and they're provided. I remember my friend took advantage of one where they did like a mock interview with her because she was applying for some years in placement, and they did a mock interview. They gave her advice on how to conduct herself well, gave her feedback on her interview style. So they do provide all these services, and I would swallow your pride and take advantage of them if you're like me. Every week, like I said, at the moment I have 5 lectures. Each lecture usually comes with reading, which can either be between like 8 to 9 pages to a whole textbook chapter. I can't promise that I'm the most thorough reader. I usually kind of make like vague notes. Sometimes that doesn't always benefit me, like in the case of my exams, but either way. And then, like I said, there's essays, practical reports, mini VLE tests, which are just like usually statistic based little tests to check your understanding, which do count towards your degree. And there's something else in there. Exams, the dreaded E word. So yeah, that's psychology. My favourite aspect is brain and behaviour. It's important to note a lot of people at the University of York for psychology have an interest in clinical psychology, because York has a connection with Hull University, I'm from Hull, where you can get onto a fast track clinical doctorate course, which is really competitive, and you get your doctorate in clinical psychology earlier. It's really intensive. I really want to do it. I hate myself. So yeah, be aware that a lot of people might say, oh, what do you want to go into? And 9 times out of 10 people say clinical psychology. Provide career talks showing you different careers in psychology. I went to one about occupational psychology and it was actually really interesting. I don't think I want to do it, but it just showed like how psychology is evident in like everywhere. And finally, I'm going to quickly talk about statistics, because I know psychology, one of the horrors of it is statistics. Do not stress. I'm not the best at maths. I'm not bad at maths. I'm also not amazing at maths. So the thought of statistics scare the crap out of me. It is hard, but once you get your head around it, it's okay. There are workshops, there are study sessions that they sometimes host. You can go to the math support building. If you want, you can get in touch through a discussion board or through emails with one of the tutors and stuff, and they can maybe give you guidance. But don't let it stress you out too much. It's really not that bad, and it's not a huge aspect of your university work. It is tested, but it's not awful, and also everyone finds it awful. Next things that I'm going to be talking about are a little bit more fun and social, and now I'm going to talk about more social things, starting with the gym. I went to the gym a relatively decent amount first year, more so towards the end of first year than the start. I went to Campus East gym. I lived on Campus West, kind of. I lived in Halifax. Getting to Campus East gym took anywhere between half an hour to an hour. It was a trek and a half to get there. If it was rainy or dark, or I was even a little bit tired, I would not want to go unless my friends were going. There is a bus from Halifax that takes you to Campus East, but it stops running at really weird times and it's not always that reliable. That is the downside of Campus East gym. Campus East gym is, unless you live on Campus East, and then great, you're like right near the gym. Campus East gym, they have a fancier gym. They have a pool, they have classes. The membership's pretty decent. You can attend any classes, you can go swimming in the pool, and you can use the gym space. For people who really value gym or might be doing like a sports degree, great, I would recommend that gym. It is a little bit more pricey, which is the downside, but you do get more included. Like I said, we did try some classes. We tried the spin classes. but it was hard to keep it up with our type of timetable. Yeah, if you are really into the gym, you really love swimming, stuff like that, it's really part of your routine, I would recommend Campus East. It's a really clean, really modern, really nice gym. Like, it's a gorgeous gym, don't get me wrong. I think if I had a car or something, I would probably still go to that gym, also if I had the time, but I have neither of those things. There's another gym on campus, this one's on Campus West, and it's just like your average gym. I'm not shitting on it at all. I don't know if you can use the track that's next to it with your gym membership, but there is like a big running track. I'm honestly not sure about that though, but I know there are running clubs. But yeah, the off-campus gym was just like your classic gym, cardio, weights, that kind of thing. I don't think there was any classes. There definitely wasn't a pool, but it is a little bit more convenient if you live on Campus West. It's cheaper, and if you just literally want to go to the gym, then that's a good place to go. I think as well students get a discount at the Uni of York gym. My housemate Maisie, she goes to the gym at the moment. She goes to a gym that's off campus, like a private gym. There is a few that are just dotted around, so you can just like search about. I don't think there's any pure gyms in York, or at least none that are in like York City Centre. Next is part-time jobs. I did not work my first year of university. I like the feeling of earning my own money, so it wasn't the most enjoyable experience, but I'm also glad that I did it. I didn't work first year because I wanted to prioritise meeting people, socialising and settling into my course, and I'm really glad I did. That's my recommendation. Do not have a part-time job in your first year. I have one now that I'm in second year, and I'm finding it okay to balance. The next thing I'm going to talk about quickly is opportunities. This is just like anything that's not necessarily paid, but just you want that experience on your CV, you want the skills, all that kind of stuff. University does kind of stress you out immediately because they're like, why are you not volunteering every other spare minute of your life? You could be volunteering right now. It does stress you out. Try not to let it do that to you. I'm quite proud of how many things I've managed to like take on. In first year as a psychology student, I volunteered at Snappy for a bit, which is a youth group for disabled children. I really liked my time there. It helped my confidence a lot. It exposed me to different disabilities and how to kind of interact with people with disabilities. My biggest advice for opportunities, you do get them like emailed to you. There's a job board for psychology where it just pops up with different opportunities, and like I said, you get them emailed around. The university is really big on Handshake, but I've never really used that. My biggest advice would be to ask. I have always had an interest in Tourette's and tic disorders. I just find them quite clinically interesting to me, and just wanted to learn more about them. And so I did some googling around on the University of York page, found a psychologist who was doing some research into Tourette's, emailed her and said, hey, do you need a research assistant or voluntary? I just want to learn more about it. Told her about my interests. Also, out of politeness, I read her work, I read her academic papers and stuff, because I just wanted to like show that I valued her work as a psychologist. And she was like all for it. We met up. She was lovely. She's really good at sticking to like appointments and to a word. Like, she's really great to work for. And then after I did some transcription work for her, she asked me if I wanted to be paid. I didn't go into this with the plan of being paid. I just wanted the experience and the interest of it. And now I'm a paid research assistant, which is my first STEM job, and I'm getting paid to do a psychology job, which is kind of fun. Okay, sorry if the camera's just shifted a bit, but I knocked it over by accident. The last thing I wanted to talk about is social life and hookup culture at the university. The university is quite good in that it makes you take a course on consent. It's mandatory. Everyone has to take this course every year on consent. Hookup culture at the University of York isn't massive. I don't feel like it's a huge thing. Some people hook up with people, some people don't. It is what it is. I have some friends who are really big into like one night stands, hookups, just fooling around. Good for them, as long as it's all consensual. That's not really my vibe, and for a lot of my friends, they're either in relationships or it's not their vibe either. So don't feel any pressure. At university as well, not everyone is having sex all the time. It's just not a thing. Like, some people are, and good for them, go get it, girl. But it's just, don't feel like you're falling behind because you're not experienced enough, or like you haven't got with anyone or anything like that. I felt like that, and so I pressured myself to do things, and I kind of wish I didn't, because they just weren't amazing. because I didn't massively want to do it. I'm not saying that someone took advantage of me, because I was consenting to it, but looking back I'm like, you know what, I would have rather waited and done it with someone that I actually wanted to do more anyway, if that makes sense. But yeah, so don't feel pressured is the bottom line here, and don't feel like everyone's doing better than you or doing more than you. 9 times out of 10 they're not. Don't compare yourself to people. Everyone also is so self-obsessed with their own lives that they're not thinking about you. They're like so self-orientated with what's going on in their own lives and in their own heads that they don't have the time to think about you. I'm not calling people self-obsessed, it's just the way the world works. So don't think that everyone's judging you, because they're not. Very rarely are they, if ever. So that's just kind of touching on that, because I know that can stress some people out a bit. It stressed me out a little bit. It's just not really a thing, especially at the University of York. Like, I'm not saying people don't hook up, they do. So if you want that, then you can find it, definitely. But don't feel like it's a huge thing here, or if you don't want to do that, you have to, or anything like that, if that makes sense. Last part I'll touch on is social life. York is really good for restaurants, bars, pubs, and honestly I don't think it's bad for clubbing. There's lots of different restaurants and places to eat. There's also a lot of different restaurants that aren't just like Western food. There is a very large Asian culture here, so there's tons of different ethnicities and different ethnicity restaurants. There's one that I tried to apply for a job with that was a Yemen based restaurant. I didn't even know what Yemen food was. I didn't know it was like its own, I mean obviously its own subculture, but like they have a whole restaurant for it here. So hey, if you like Yemen food, come to York. They also have that for like all different substrains of different cultures. There's this place called Spark that's really good, which is just like little vendors. It's a good place to go if you can't decide what you all want to eat. There's tons of coffee shops. Some are in the walls, some are like in the city centre. When you go into York at the weekend, it is so much more busier than midweek. My recommendation is try and go midweek if you want to like eat or have a chill time out. One of my cafes that I like is called Drift In. If you go between Monday to Thursday, it's pretty dead and you can get a seat quite easily. If you go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, God help you, you'll be queuing for a while. There's a lot of bars and pubs. Good pre-drink bars or like going out bars include Dusk, Evil Eye, Stone Roses, and I feel like there's one more. Fossgate / Micklegate Social. Those are really nice, they're really chill, especially Fossgate Social. I love that place, it's so cozy. Clubs. There are quite a few clubs in York. I don't think people think there are many, but there are. It also depends on like your preference, by the way. Cuda, Salvation, which is like a bit more, it's a mixture between house and well-known music. A little bit more lively, a bit more busy, and if you want to pull, you might have a better chance at Cuda or Salva if you want to like get with someone. Just saying. There is Flares, which is just fun. The only thing is the music is usually the same every time, although I feel like that's true of like every club ever. But yeah, Flares is quite a lot of fun. Again, if you go during a student night, usually a bit better because the people that you're like clubbing with are the same age as you, because sometimes there's just like middle-aged men. There's Pop World. Either be really drunk or just don't go. I did go on a themed night, a Taylor Swift night, and I stayed right till the close, but also I would do anything for Taylor Swift. So there's also Turtle Bays and a Mannahatta, which do like bottomless brunches and sometimes do themed nights. The ones that I've gone to at Mannahatta haven't been amazing though. They said like ABBA nights and they played like 3 ABBA songs. There is also Revolution and Yates, which are a little bit more like, they do have a clubbing element and they do student nights, and I have had a good night at Rev and at Yates. Like they've been okay, but sometimes they're good to like start at and then go somewhere else, especially Yates. Like it's a nice one to begin at and then you can go to the actual club. There is a McDonald's and there is some takeaways. Our favourites are McDonald's, being McDonald's, and Salt and Pepper are our like favourite post clubbing takeaways. There's also Ziggy's, which is a little bit more like R&B music. I like Ziggy's, I really like the vibe. I'm also short and it's in a basement and my friend hates going because it's not a very tall person friendly place. You can bang your head in the ceiling, but I think it's such a vibe. They also host indie night there and I love indie night. It's just like my music almost to a T. So they do an indie night there. That's every first Tuesday of the month or every Tuesday of the month. Like one Tuesday a month, if that makes sense. There's also drawing board, which is right next to dusk. That's good for pre-drinks. So there's tons, like, as you get in the vibe, there's tons of places you can go to have a dance, to have a drink, to have a chill drink, to have a meal and a drink, to have a drink and a dance. Also, if you really hate it, 20 minutes, you're off to Leeds on the train. And it's Leeds. So yeah, I hope this kind of helps. If you do have any more questions, then you can either leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to answer it like as soon as I can. I am quite busy at the moment, but I will try and answer it. And you can also drop me a message on my Instagram, which is this, Emma_X_Elizabeth. I'll also like link that in the description box. I'll like leave what that is in the description box. But yeah, if you have any more questions or just like general curiosities about it or like advice, let me know, girl. But yeah, and I think that's kind of everything I wanted to talk about. So thanks for watching this video. I don't know why you did in all honesty, but I do appreciate it. And I'll see you soon.
Got the sunshine on my face, let's play with it all day. All the fun times come my way, I'm taking them so great. When the sunshine on my face, let's play with it all day. All the fun times come my way, I'm taking them so great. When the sunshine on my face, let's play with it all day. All the fun times come my way, I'm taking them so great. When the day hits from the summer, waves in, I'm chasing friends that wanna hang the days in like, hey.